So I always tell people you either have to have good credit, a lot of cash, or both. So, listen, this is not something that we want to jump into overnight. So the good thing is if your credit is not where it needs to be, we can get you some credit repair services to get you in a position to be able to secure a loan and get a rate that's not going to drive you crazy.
Welcome to Black Businesses Matter, a podcast about why Black businesses matter and the benefits of collaborating and advocating for Black businesses to drive impact. Each episode, we will cover legacy, hope, Black joy, funding sources, cultural shifts, equity, and so much more. We will provide inspiration and action while spreading some joy to a thriving community of Black business owners and leading thought leaders. Black Business Matters podcast is produced by the L3 Agency, a culturally sensitive influencer marketing and communications firm in Chicago, where relationships are our currency, passion is our profit maker, and people are our bottom line. I'm Larvetta Lofton, your host and founder of the L3 Agency. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Black Businesses Matter. I am super thrilled to have our next guest up because this is something, to be honest with you, was most looking forward to because I believe that this next guest is going to give us just a wealth of information in the space of franchising that we just haven't seen in how they work and why they're important. And we have an expert here who's really going to talk about that in his transition from the information technology into now really in the space of franchising. The crazy part about this next guest is that we heard him at an event that we were sponsoring and were so intrigued by his information and his thought leadership in this space that we were like, okay, you got to come to Black Businesses Matter and be a guest. And he said yes. And we're going to talk about how he then took that connection and listened to our episodes. And that's why he's here. So I want to tell you about Chris and who he is, which he goes by Chris. That's just his thing. He's like, I'm Chris. And so that's the kind of conversation we're going to have. He's 20 plus years of business experience in the information technology and franchise industry. He started his franchising journey as a multi-unit franchisee of Club Pilates. And Club Pilates is ranked number 104 on the top 500 franchises by Entrepreneur Magazine. And I love that because I am a Pilates girl. Chris Studio has performed as a top 10 studio in the country out of 600 plus locations. He has sold both studios in December of 2021, which was actually last year. And now he is a multi-unit franchisee with Salons by JC, where he is building out locations in the Orlando, Florida metro area. He is a managing partner with TMC Ventures, which has invested in a multi-unit deal with an emerging franchise brand called Chick and Cone. So he's going to tell us all about that. So after leaving his successful career in tech sales and engineering corporate America, Chris founded Legacy Franchise Ventures, where he guides senior level executives in the identification, research, and analysis of franchise opportunity. Legacy Franchise Ventures has a partnership with 700 plus nationally recognized franchise brands in multiple industries. So we're super excited to have him. And I'm just going to throw that he is an active member of Gamma Delta Sigma chapter of Phi Beta Sigma fraternity. And we also have a man who loves to ride his motorcycle and spend time with his wife and 2 children and 2 dogs. So I had to give his whole bio because Chris has this most incredible energy. He's like fired up. Okay. So I wanted to give you all of his background, and then he's also doing and having fun in life. So I wanted to make sure people knew that. Hey, Chris, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
No, I'm so glad you're here. And Chris, they don't know if we were on video, you're going to come with the energy in the audio too, but your energy you're so mild. When we met you, we asked you for your hand sanitizer, right, Chris? Was it your hand? We asked you to push your table And then
Yeah,
literally,
you tried to move me off to the side when I first met you, but it's all good. It was okay. I can share some space.
and then we heard Chris and was like, oh my gosh, she's incredible, but just a really kind man. So tell me, Chris, how does you go from this engineering, right, background to this business of franchising? That's a big gap. So tell me what's that journey like?
So I wish I could say that it was like carefully thought out and it was this master plan that I had, but the reality is it really wasn't. So what happened was I got laid off. And the first time I got laid off, I was single with no kids, but still didn't like the way it felt. You go from making good money, paycheck every 15th and the 30th, to nothing. After that happened, I luckily got a job within a week. The company that laid me off didn't have anyone to do my job, so they rehired me. And I was just kind of like, you know what? Yeah, I'm not going to catch me slipping twice. So I started thinking of ways that I could make additional streams of income, and franchising had always been an interest of mine, except that I thought that you had to be a millionaire to get in. So I started researching as much as I could. And we might have to go way back to like me being 14 years old and my introduction to franchising, but we can jump into that later. But so I started researching franchising as much as I could, found a brand that fit what I was looking for, invested in them, got laid off again while I was trying to get that business up and running, eventually got it up and running and did very well, and then got laid off for the third time. And I just kind of said, I watched a little baseball back in the day. 3 strikes, corporate America is out. I'm going all in on this franchising thing. And that's where we are today.
So you're gonna have to tell me about this 14-year-old boy who might have had the bug back when he was 14 and didn't know it. Is that what
Right.
you're telling me? Yeah.
That's what I'm
Tell
telling you.
me
So
about
my
that.
first job ever, 14 years old, making $5.05 an hour. I remember that like it was yesterday. But I worked at Carvel Ice Cream Bakery, which was a ice cream store very popular in the Northeast, group in New Jersey. And the owner of that establishment was a pretty young guy. He was like 30 years old. And I was kind of like, how did this guy get a business in his late 20s, early 30s? And it turns out his father was a very rich man, and his father would gift his children a business when they turned a certain age. And that was his plan to like create and sustain his legacy. So he would teach them how to run a business, teach them how to be self-sufficient. Essentially, he was getting them off his personal payroll, right? So you didn't have to come back to pops asking for money. And I just thought that was cool. And I was like, I want to be in a position where I could gift my kids a business when the time came.
I like that you said that. Gift your kids a business, not gift them a car, not gift them a designer bag, but gift them a business.
Right, not gift them some debt. Sometimes parents do that.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Let's talk about it from the standpoint of franchising and why franchising. What I find interesting too, Chris, we have a guest that we interviewed when we did a couple of live interviews down in Atlanta. And it was actually a franchise owner who had purchased another, I guess, franchise, right? So he could be the owner of two of their locations. And he just walked us through that process. And I thought it was really incredible why he did it, the benefits of it. So I would love for you to really walk us through your process of owning a franchise and then now helping others to identify the franchise to purchase.
Let me start off by saying that there are about 4,000 different franchises out there, and picking a good one can be kind of difficult if you don't have the expertise. I worked with a franchise consultant who is still my mentor to this day. He did a consultation with me to basically figure out what I was looking for, what my investment level is, asked me some particular questions about the opportunity, and he basically came up with a short list of brands that he thought would be a good fit based on what we talked about. Right. And so that for me was life changing, because going into it, I thought that it was all about fast food, right? You always hear about McDonald's and your ice cream stores, Chick-fil-A, all of that stuff. And it's easy to think that franchising is just about food and beverage, but there's a whole other world out there from an industry perspective that you can really do some dynamic things in, and it doesn't have to be burgers and fries. So once my eyes got open to that, all right, there's a crack in the door, let's kick it open. The process that I use is pretty similar to what he used with me. We do a personality assessment to see just what makes you go, like what drives you, what kind of salesperson you are, what kind of business acumen you have to allow you to run the business. And then we want to look at it from a culture perspective, because a lot of it is about fit, right? So we want to make sure that we're pairing you up with a franchise that has some of the same core values that you have. I mean, of course, you always have to talk about the bottom line, right? No one goes into a business to lose money, right? We all want to make money and make a nice return on our investment. So that return has to be something that makes sense when we look at the financials. So when we do all of those things, the number of franchises really shrinks down from 4,000 to single digit numbers of things that would be a good fit for you based on what you're looking at. And then it's a matter of combing through that and figuring out which one is the best for you.
I like this approach because I think it's just being able to narrow down. And I didn't know you could do all this. I mean, so I just think it's incredible. So I do want to ask you this based on what you say, some people would say, oh, I can't do a franchise business. My credit is bad. I don't have the cash. How do you help individuals who want to do a business, maybe don't have good credit? I don't know if that's even an option. Do you have to have good credit? What are some things that people should be thinking about?
So I always tell people you either have to have good credit, a lot of cash, or both. So, listen, this is not something that we want to jump into overnight. So the good thing is if your credit is not where it needs to be, we can get you some credit repair services to get you in a position to be able to secure a loan and get a rate that's not going to drive you crazy. So the first thing is just making sure our financial ducks are in a row from a credit perspective. It's always good to have some collateral as well, some money saved up. We always talk about, from a personal standpoint, having 3 to 9 months of rainy day fund should something happen. And so you don't want to go into business if, the personal side of your finances isn't up to par. Most businesses, franchises or not, fail because of undercapitalization, right? People just run out of money. So we want to make sure that you're well financed and that you're not going to, run out of money before the project gets off the ground.
Makes sense. What's the benefit of starting or buying? Let me say this buying, we'll talk about starting if you have an existing business, but what's the benefit of buying a franchise versus launching your own business?
No wrong answer. I think if you have a great idea and you're willing to see that through, I think that is fantastic. And I would never discourage anyone from doing that. If you don't have such a great idea, sometimes it's okay to use someone else's idea and not reinvent the wheel, right? So the benefit of franchising is you're investing in a proven model. That business plan has worked in multiple locations across the country, sometimes even across the world, so that you know what you're buying into, right? From a projection standpoint. You also get the support of the franchise companies. For example, when I invested in the Pilates studio, I could have started a Pilates studio all by myself. Problem is I didn't know much about Pilates, right? So it would have taken me some time and a lot of money to figure out what kind of equipment I should get. What do I charge for it? What my website should look like? How many classes we should have a day? What do I pay my staff? All of those questions that needed to be answered. When I invested in the franchise, they were like, okay, this is what you do. Here's a run book of everything that you need. Here's support staff. Here's a real estate person that's going to help you find the perfect location. Here's marketing people to show you how to get people in the door. Here's some sales resources that are going to show you how to sell to those people once they get in the door. Here's what we pay on average for staff. And so a lot of the questions that needed to be answered were already answered for me. So now it's just a matter of taking a plan and running with it. So that's why I love franchising, because you get to really take advantage of someone else's hard work. I mean, they spent years and a lot of money figuring all that stuff out. And now you buy in, you get the benefit of that. And then one of the things that I didn't realize going into it that I found out after was you become friends with people in your network who are running the same business as you in different parts of the country. So you get to bounce ideas off of each other, get best practices. If something's not working out, you can learn from their mistakes and vice versa. You're not going at it by yourself. Then there's some other benefits. It's easier to get a loan when it comes to franchise lending because the banks know that there's a better chance for success. Bunch of reasons of why you can go with franchising. But again, that's not to slight folks who want to start their own endeavor.
Yeah, and I appreciate that because the thing that I think that you're also saying is you have this built-in community and tribe that you didn't have previously. So as a new business owner, you now have this built-in tribe. That's the most important thing is making sure that you have that. So I think that's the part that's just dynamite, I think, from a franchise. I want to say this too, Chris, from the standpoint of franchise owners, right? To your point, I wanted to go back to the people that I knew that owned franchise were food. I had McDonald's as a client, and we specifically work with the Black McDonald's operators of across the country. And so what was so unique about them is that they really did run McDonald's, and it was a considerable, I mean, there was a lot of them. And many of them put their kids through school. Many of them passed that franchise down to their families. They have family members who could also own a franchise. So it was definitely eye-opening for me from that standpoint. And so knowing that and understanding that, as I was sharing with you before, seeing this trend, and what I would love for you to do is tell us, what is that trend look like? Because I knew at McDonald's, it was like, get a McDonald's franchise. You can make a boatload of money. I just remember that message. I just remember, I was like, oh, when I grow up, maybe I'll buy me a franchise. Maybe I'll buy a McDonald's I did. I remember that, kind of thinking about that. Then I did the numbers. I was like, oh, okay. I don't know if I want to do that because this is a lot more expensive than I thought it was. But you're seeing a trend of franchises popping up. I want you to tell me, what is like the trend? And to your point, it's not all food anymore. So that's what I see too. But I would love to see what you see as opportunities across the country in the franchise
Yeah, so
business.
franchising was performing exceptionally well across the board before COVID, right? And then when COVID happened, it caused people to kind of reassess where they were, whether it be in their career or their personal life. And so we saw a huge spike in people applying for EINs 2020, 2021, right? So those are people who are going into business, franchises are not for themselves. So there was a huge spike based on the numbers that came back. They were like, this is unprecedented, right? So people are going. And then you had the great resignation where people were leaving their jobs and deciding that they wanted to bet on themselves. What we're also seeing is across the industry, folks are like really trying to address the wealth gap that clearly exists between ourselves and when we're compared to other races, right? So that's why it's important to have a podcast like Black Businesses Matter, because we have work to do when it comes down to it. So the SBA, which is the Small Business Association, released some numbers about the differences in self-employment rates between Black individuals and white individuals, right? And when you look at it on a chart, I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but the numbers are pretty far apart. How do we fix that is the question. And so franchises know that with Black ownership comes Black spending. And so to help with the problem, they are really going after folks that can run these businesses and do it well. It means more revenue for them. And it also means more revenue in our communities, which is awesome. Even the SBA has teamed up recently with historically Black fraternities and sororities. And they have this like landmark collaboration now where they're helping and making it easier for Black individuals in those organizations to get loans. And so the easier it is to get a loan, the easier it is to start your business and to keep some revenue in our community.
You just hit the buzzword that I love, and that's collaboration, because, this collaboration connection that is so important. And I like that you said, how do we do it? You get someone, a person of color, Black person, to purchase this franchise, to bring some of that in there. I mean, first of all, the other part about it, Chris, is we're, as a body, we are the largest employers of Black people. Black
That's
businesses.
right.
You then now get to employ more Black business, put them to work. And then to your point, they too come in there and spend money, because I also saw a report about the employees and how in retail business, they're still marketing to the employees. The employees are buying as they're getting their checks and going back and, and buying from them. And so there becomes, an opportunity that still tracks. So I do think that the opportunity to look at this as a viable business and looking at franchise as another business ownership opportunity. And then I wanted to ask you, do you also help? So I know with a lot of franchises also dealing with whether it's a land purchase or a lease purchase. When you purchase a franchise, you get a broker to support you, to tell you how to do it, because oftentimes you are doing a lease deal or some kind of, real estate deal.
Most franchises, if you do need like a brick and mortar establishment, will have a broker that they can assign to you local in your community, because there's certain criteria that each business is going to look for. And so they want to make sure that they're in lockstep with that broker so that they're finding the right spaces and doing it efficiently. So you definitely will find that. So that's another example of help that you get from a franchise that you otherwise wouldn't get if you were doing it by yourself. I'll give you an example. I'm building out a salon suite here in Orlando, which is a franchise. And the franchise company, before I even look at locations, they assigned a whole company, and their job was to just do due diligence on the space that I was thinking about renting. So they came in and looked at all types of stuff, from the HVAC to the floor to the roof to the venting, to all types of stuff that I have no clue about. And so you're getting that help. And I think that just goes to making better business decisions. Now, to touch on a point that you just brought up, which I think is really important when we talk about the folks that we can hire, what I really love about businesses, and this is not exclusive to franchising, is it's not just about the folks that you hire to work in the business, but you're also going to need accountants and people that clean the establishment. You're going to need attorneys. And so like you find out that you have all of these ancillary needs that can be addressed. And if you're anything like me, you're going to look in the community to get those needs answered before you look outside.
Chris, whew, you just gave me chills, seriously, because we don't talk enough about the service industry and the attorney and marketing folks and legal folks and HVAC, all of that, because that is really what makes a company
That's right.
work.
That's
And
right.
I'm so glad that you bring that up, because as a service based business, we've also said that, like, in order to do what we do, we have to have an attorney, we have to have some support on HR. We have to have some support on payroll. Like, all of these are services. They are services that we have to use or
That's right.
to a certain degree, or you're going to get in trouble. I mean, to a certain
Yeah.
degree, right? You're going to get in trouble, whether it's with the federal government or it's from someplace else. You're
Yeah.
going to get in trouble.
So I'm developing what I call a legacy list. And this is a list that I'm handing off to my clients when they invest in a franchise. And this list is going to contain, CPAs, accountants that do good work. These are not just like a list. These are people that I've personally worked with and have vetted and know that they will take care of folks, right? There'll be folks in there that handle payroll, HR. You can start a business, but do you know how to hire people? Do you know how to terminate people? Like, you got to do things the right way, to your point, because either you're going to get a nasty letter from the IRS or a nasty letter from an attorney. And I assure you don't want either of those, right? So I'm developing and this ever changing list of these people, of these resources that can help us. A lot of times folks think that once you're getting into entrepreneurship that you have to do everything yourself. And that's a very dangerous proposition. I really believe in outsourcing things that I'm not necessarily good at or just don't have the time to do. So I won't pretend to be a lawyer. I won't also pretend to be an accountant. Those are things that I'm going to hire anytime I run a business.
And Chris, I think that's part of the reason why I do believe, I am certainly not going to make this statement, but I hands down convinced that businesses fail because they don't get the support they need. I don't think that businesses fail because they don't have an incredible product or incredible service. It's that they don't get the help. They're doing it all, right? They're doing the legal, they're doing the hiring, they're doing everything from that point, operations. They're doing this. Let's be real. I don't know about you, Chris, but in Orlando and in Chicago, it's the same 24 hours. It's the same. It's the same 24 hours. So at the end of the day, you need to rest, and you need to put in time with your business. And I don't think we understand that, because the grind, which is why I wanted to build this, is that was meant for thriving businesses, right? These are businesses that are thriving, because we kept hearing struggle and struggle, struggle. Don't get me wrong. There are things we definitely struggle with: capital, cash flow. Those are still things that we struggle with. But the reality of it all, there are businesses that are thriving who have service based professionals to support them, right? They have an advisory board. They have people like you that they can go to kind of lead them and guide them for the best direction. So I'm glad you're building that list. And I'm just going to say that, make it available to everyone, outside of franchises. I think it's helpful, because when people come to me like, who do you use for this? And I'm like, oh yeah, I use, and I'm thinking, they're like, no, I don't know. No, I don't. I didn't know I needed that. I'm like, yeah, you do need that. You just never know. So you want to make sure that happens. So I just want to say this, Chris, this interview might be the interview where I'm just sitting here, oh my gosh, this is incredible, because I do get people to talk about franchise businesses and how they can be quite profitable in this space. And then when you bring out the Black entrepreneurship of the franchise, it just makes it just even hotter and sweeter. So I do want to ask you this question, because we certainly ask this question on every guest that we have, is why do Black businesses matter?
You always have to look at who's watching you. And I think it's so important for, just like when I was 14, to see someone who didn't look like me do something, and it inspired me to do something. So now I hope that when people frequent my establishment, there's a little 14-year-old Black boy or girl that looks and sees, hey, I can do this too. So I think representation is so important, because it really opens up the youth's eyes as far as what they can and cannot do. Sometimes our society will try to pigeonhole folks or steer them in a certain direction. And it's important to have examples of folks that look like you doing some things that you may or may not have thought of before. And I think that doing that just helps where we'll be in a couple of years.
I think so. And I wanted to go back to collaboration, because one of the things that we find is that when general market companies collaborate with Black businesses, really we do generate impact, right? Because now you have diversity. You really have diversity. So you have this Black business that, and then perhaps they hire women. So you now have this. And that's the beauty that people don't understand. And I know you do this, right? You have a Black franchisee, but perhaps they have a vendor that's a white vendor, right? But when they do business, they don't look at that as a Black business, right? They're just like, oh, that's one of our vendors. And so, but they also have this, I think it makes you have a full scope business, right? So we're not saying not to hire or not employ white people or not employ white services. What we're saying is collaborate because we matter. That's the difference, right? We matter. So don't overlook us. Basically, and that's what you said. Representation matters because you have not seen us as value. When I think about me as a 13-year-old, and all I knew were Black franchisees of McDonald's, and all they would do in the community, and you had good grades, they gave you ice cream, you had a free scoop of ice cream at McDonald's. So that was like, oh wow, this is cool. And to me it was like, I thought that was the norm. So to be honest with you, I'm like, oh okay, but it was for all kids. It wasn't for Black kids, it was for all kids. And so that's the part that we also don't understand, is that those efforts, whatever community we live in, it's just based on that. So while you are a Black business owner, it also tells that white person like, oh, that's really cool that they do that. So we've not been able to really show that there's value in that level of representation too. There's a tremendous amount of that.
So here's what's funny. When I invested in a Pilates studio, whether right or wrong, I live in Florida, right? We always hear about Florida man and just stuff going on down here. So I really wasn't pushing, Black business, because first of all, I'm like, to me, when you run a business, you want inclusive partnership from the community, because that means more revenue for you, right? So I wasn't opening a business just for Black people to come and attend. Great if they do, but I would like, our white brothers and sisters to attend too. So I wasn't really telling anyone that I was the owner, just because I had, some, I don't know, some validation that I needed to do on my end, maybe, right? What you find though is that folks, that when they did find out, white or Black, they were happy that the business was doing well and happy that it was providing a service to the community. So I think that's the important part. I always look at marketing folks, because when you look at like stock images, that really tells you whose dollars they're trying to get behind. And I'm very careful when I look at an ad and I don't see people, a diverse imagery and diverse thought. And so that's what, when you look at what corporations are doing from a DEI perspective, it's not just about diversity of people, but it's diversity of thought. You want that culture so that it's all inclusive and everyone feels welcomed. And when people are welcome, they'll spend money in your establishment.
Chris, that's why I just love you, because literally that's what we speak on our side as an agency, like being able to be a firm that's diversity in thought. So thought doesn't always, it's like we all didn't grow up in the same way. So my thought of having dinner with my family might look different from your dinner with family, completely different. And we don't understand that. Or the idea of thought that you could still go to a higher institution. I go to a HBCU, and very different in how we think, but we're still two Black individuals, right? So we've never been able to understand that we are different in that we are the same in color, but there's things within ourselves that still will continuously resonate because when we walk in the room and we see us, we like, hey, it's the nod from Blackish, right? It's the nod like, hey, how you
Right.
doing? It's the nod. And you appreciate that. So
Right.
that's the part that does. But I think that, and I want to say this, Chris, as we close up, is that I don't think that there's anything wrong with not showcasing yourself because I don't think that it is always necessary to, I think it's somewhat, I think it's actually more, it's easier to scale fast. You can scale faster when you don't. I do believe that as someone who's run a business, because people still want to look for you. They don't look for my employees. They're looking for me. Well, where's Larvetta, right? Instead of who is such and such. So I think that there's not that you have to hide yourself, but I don't think that you have to be in the forefront, if you will, because I think you can still have a tremendous impact in your community by supporting local programs without you having to say, hey, I'm Black, right? Because I believe that don't have to announce ourselves as Black. I think we have to announce that we do great work or have a great service or have a great product. I think we do that. When you see me, you see me. I don't have to announce that.
I
I
love it.
don't
I
have
feel
to
the
announce.
same exact way. Yep.
You just don't have to say it. You look at them and say, oh, okay. If you want to, you can ask, but I don't think you have to do that. And I think that's where we fall in this space where we don't have to when we had to. And that's why we were saying Black businesses matter from the standpoint of making sure that people understand that partnering, collaborating with Black businesses is how we're able to do what we do, which means that Black businesses matter, right? When you have them in
That's
that
right.
supplier chain. So I do want to ask you as we close, because this was such a great and I think it was a very knowledgeable interview. And I love when I get to do that and learn something new is what brings you joy, Chris?
So let me start by saying people will talk themselves out of stuff, right? Opportunity. And I love when I'm able to get people to understand that they can do it too, right? And so business ownership is one of the things that almost everyone thinks about at some point or not. Whether they do it or not is a different story. But so I love when I get to talk to my clients about the opportunities out there, explain to them that it's not just burgers and fries and open their eyes about other industries. And I love seeing that excitement and then watching them go and do well and thrive and really reverse course in some instances. I think that brings me a lot of joy.
That's incredible. I love that. And so, Chris, hey, this is where we get to make sure people know how to connect with you. So, can you please share your website, your various handles, connect points for people to connect with you?
The website is legacyfv.com. So it's Legacy Franchise Ventures, but so Legacy F is in franchise, V is in ventures.com. I'm on LinkedIn as well. Chris V. Wilson is my LinkedIn page. And on Instagram, we are LFV Consultants. So looking forward to connecting with folks. Forgot to mention, we offer free consultations for folks either looking at franchising or looking to turn their business into a franchise. So it doesn't hurt to ask some questions, get them answered for free.
And that's the part that I was hoping you were going to say because I saw that. I was like, oh my gosh, that's incredible because people need to be able to have someone that they can talk to for free. And not to say that Chris is giving that away for free, guys, but know that he has so much knowledge and there's a tremendous amount of value there. So making sure that you could also bless him back with something for free because I believe that it should be a reciprocal relationship. As we close, I do want to ask you one question before we close is we didn't touch on this. I just want to touch on it a bit before we close is that what businesses are good business to franchise? I mean, I know food, but give me the profile of the best business that could consider franchise. Like, I get the industry, you can give me an industry, but like giving me the profile or the persona of a good business that could be franchisable, if that's a
So
word.
it has to be something that's unique or a unique spin. Chick-fil-A didn't invent chicken, but they do it a different way, right? Whether that's customer service or whatever have you. So it has to be unique. It has to have some success. So we look for folks that have one location or even better, two or multiple, that breeds success, and investors or future investors want to take a look at that. And then the scariest part for business owners is that they're going to have to step away from a little bit from doing the day-to-day operations and really move towards supporting the folks that are going to be coming in as investors. So we want to make sure that if you're the secret sauce to the business, you got to write that stuff down, get it down on paper, and it really has to be able to run without you being there. So those are some of the things that make a business franchisable.
Chris, I'm just going to say this. That makes a lot of Black businesses is hard because oftentimes we're so close to it. Oh no, I make all the sauces, I make all this. You know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about? It makes us, so that's where we fall short, but it also creates legacy for us to have a business that lives longer than we live, right? It really outlives us from that standpoint. So, is there any advice that you would give those who have an interest but necessarily still struggle in those areas?
Sometimes we think that things have to happen overnight, right? So let's find out where you are, find out where you want to get to, and let's come up with a plan. That plan might be a couple of weeks, it could be a year or longer. So at least know what you're working with. Don't sell yourself short before you get some data around what it's going to be and what it's going to cost, right? So have that conversation. I always say connect with folks who are better in those areas. So don't try to franchise something by yourself. You're going to want to talk to some good franchise attorneys and folks who have done this before. That just makes the journey easier for you. Get that network right. Talk to me, talk to whoever you trust in the arena so that you just have an easier run at it.
Thank you so much for being a guest on Black Businesses Matter. I know it took us a while to get you on here, but I am super excited that we were able to secure you because I do believe there is so much opportunity in this space, whether to purchase a franchise or start a franchise. And I think because of the great resignation, as you mentioned, I think that also up opportunities for people to pursue franchising as a career path. And I like that you use the word investors so that you have a business, you're creating franchise, but then they become your investors. And honestly, that's what we all want. We want
Mhm.
investors, right?
That's right.
Of our
Yeah.
business. So
So
that's
one
the
little
part.
Yeah, one little secret about franchising is that you can't buy a franchise. You have to be awarded one, and you're awarded to be an investor. It doesn't matter how much money you have. If you go to Chick-fil-A and say, I want to open a restaurant, I want to be open on Sunday, they're going to be like, no, get out of here, right? Like
Right.
they
Right.
have their own
Right.
criteria. That's why I'm very particular with that. You are an investor and you're looking for future investors. Those investors are going to help grow your brand and you're going to charge them royalties. That's what franchising is.
As we close, you guys connect with him. And I also want to say this because I got to say that there's someone that I want you to connect that you may not even know, but his name is Lanier Richardson. And he's actually in New Jersey, where you originally, you said you were from. Did you say
Mhm.
Jersey? No, you
Grew
were
up in
from
Jersey. Yeah,
originally.
from New York. Grew up in New Jersey.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because he really supports through his commercial leasing investment program is really get franchisees to support his commercial leasing program. So I definitely think you guys need to connect. And Chris, we've already made that connection already from the podcast.
love
I
it.
certainly
Love it.
want to connect you to him. He's actually in the first episode at the beginning of our podcast. His company was a sponsor. Chicago Trend was a sponsor of our first season. And they are an investment company to help businesses who need additional capital, both franchises and just standalone businesses. So he's someone that I think could be of value to what you do because of their support of commercial investments.
Love it. Looking forward to growing that connection.
So I'll make sure and make that connection. But I just want to say thank you so much for being a guest of Black Businesses Matter. I appreciate you.
Larvette, it was my pleasure. Love you so much.
Oh, I love you back. And I just want to say to our listeners, thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Black Businesses Matter, where we are building a bridge for collaboration. This is just another amazing episode where it enlightens us and empowers us to see that if that path of franchising is the way you want to go, that there's an opportunity. But then it also tells other communities, our general market communities, to understand that there is value in investing in Black businesses. And so ensuring that is at the forefront. So I just want to say thank you guys again for tuning in, and we look forward to not seeing you, but certainly being here to provide you with great interviews every week. See you soon. Thank you for joining us this week on Black Businesses Matter podcast. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen so you will never miss a show. You can also follow us on social media at the L3 Agency and at Larvetta Speaks. If you love the show, leave a rating so that we can continue to bring you impactful episodes. You can also take the pledge and order our merch at our website at thell3agency.com. THEL3agency.com. Thanks for listening and see you next week.